lot of things to talk about. Hey, there we go. Sorry about that. Once again, Jeff Colson, junior hockey advisor. The new platform. If I don't have Mike with me, Mike should join us later on. He's at a practice tonight. Once again, I am not a family advisor. What I do for a living is I actually am a director of an NA3HL development, player development, and I work in the hockey industry. I've been an owner of junior teams. I've been an NCAA coach. I've worked as a general manager. I worked as a head coach, assistant coach, just about everything in the industry I've done. And I try to share that with you to help inform you of what we do. So we're not family advisors. I know some of you have been reaching out. Quite a few of you have been reaching out over the last few weeks, maybe a month, and asking me to represent you. That's not what I do. But I do individual one-on-one sessions for a fee. I'm not trying to solicit that. I'm just letting you kind of know what I do. I'd love to see who's out there. So please put your comments on. Tonight, we're going to hit two topics. One is, I think, fascinating because we're going to dig deep into how to evaluate a Division I team using Elite Prospects and using College Hockey Inc. We're going to go through a process to get a different view of a college hockey team. And for those of you that are going to go down the D1 road, I think it's extremely important to understand that and know how that works. So we're going to do that in a little bit. Let's see if I can throw comments up. I'm going to share screen in a little bit, but I'll try to get the comments up and running too. Just don't see that happening for a second. Bingo. I think that'll work. There we go. So if you got comments, it's good to see you, Andrew. Try to say your first name and last name at the same time. Andrew, see you in New Brunswick, Canada. Thank you for coming on. Matt, see you in Michigan. Thanks for hopping on too. Hey to you all as well. So let's jump right in. If you've got questions or you've got comments, I put the screen up. Those ones that are already on won't show up, but anything new should display on the screen. So if you want to say hi, you got a question, you got a comment, or you want to add, additional information to what I'm sharing, feel free to throw a comment up. And I think that'll work really good. Wild day in the NA3 trade deadline. I did not see that yet today. I've been on the phone all day, so I haven't looked at the NA3 and the trade deadline. I know there was some interesting USHL trades today too. So maybe we can get into a little bit that as we go along, but thanks for throwing that up. If you want to be a part of the so your name shows up, you notice the comments that are popping up right now say Facebook user. If you go to Restream, you can put your comments on Restream and the site. If you just put Google Restream, you can get into our live feed there. You can also go into the chat area. I think there should be something that pops up for you there. Anyway, another comment come in. I'm in Whitefish Mountain. You got 06, you got 6 kids, or your kid's an 06 playing U18? I think he's an 06 with a current tender recently in place at Thanksgiving. Well, congratulations to you. Appreciate that. And we'll get rolling. So let me throw on a screen so I can share with you what I want to look at first. There's 2 sites. If you're going to play along at home, there's 2 sites that we'll grab. We'll grab College Hockey Inc. and we'll grab elite prospects and maybe another site too. So we will make this happen. And let's jump on. Okay, I'm going to jump on College Hockey Inc. after I make sure that you can see my screen here. I love it. Share screen. Where did you go? Thumbnails. Let's try over here. I'll go to the old system and see if we can share screens there. Okay, we're sharing screens now. I'll try to make that big enough so you can see it. This is College Hockey Inc. For those of you that jump on the homepage, when you pull up College Hockey Inc., looks like this. I'm in the NCAA recruiting section, and I'm under commits. So the screen that we're looking at right now is there is 1,000 players, 1,021 players that are currently committed to a college, but they're not in college yet. So these are the guys that are in juniors, maybe a few in prep, a few in Minnesota high school that have their commitments. So actually a few in 16 and 18 also. But this is a list, and the way it's set up right now, it's under the first column. It's set in chronological order, reverse chronological order. So the most recent commit is a kid named Michael Deck, and he committed to Cornell. Now, this is always within a day or two. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look at two teams. We're going to look at, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to college and click on the college button. Now they're all sorted by the university, and it shows you the kids that are committed to that university, and it's still in chronological order, but it's in chronological order to the team. So in other words, if we look at Brown, which is not one we're going to look at in the long run, you can see the first one in the column down here, the kid committed at 10/28/20, and the last one committed January 24th of 24. So those are their list of kids, and this is the starting year. So you get the university, well, you get the league up top. This is an ECAC team. That's in blue there. I don't know if you can see where my mouse is jumping around there. Then you have all the Brown University kids, and the year they start, then the kid's name, his position, his current team. Now, a lot of people think that this column of current team is the team that they originated with when they committed. That's not true. It could be. In other words, this is correct when you look at Sioux City, because at 124 he would be playing for Sioux City. But if you look at the down here at the Zach Ruski kid, he's a left D down here. It says he's with the Junior Americans, and he committed 4 years ago. 4 years ago, the Junior Americans didn't exist. It only shows the current team they're playing for. Now, that's interesting, but I want to take you down to Harvard first. Now, it's interesting here when you look at Harvard, and let me see if I can get it right up to the top there. Okay, there's Harvard. You see, that's a pretty long list of commitments. In fact, that's a really long list of commitments. That's 36. We can do a real quick count on them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. Okay, there's 27 committed players on Harvard. Now, what we want to do now is we want to get an idea of how many 24-25. Next year is 24-25. How many kids are going to play in the 20 or are committed to that school for 24-25? The answer is 13. So if you just go in here and count all the 24-25s, we don't need to do that right now. You'll see that, it's 24-25. There's a big chunk of them here. There's a big chunk of them there. It comes up to 13. Now, who's getting red flags from that? Anybody out there getting red flags that there's 20 some odd kids? There's a roster, a full team of players committed, and half of them are starting next year. Now, this is where we have to switch. So we're going to look at Harvard. We get an idea of how many overall commitments they have. And then what we want to do after that is we want to see how many are starting next year. And we're only using next year as a litmus test. You might be 3-4 years away from this. Maybe you're next year and you're talking to some D1 schools. But what we really want to get an idea of is how accurate is this list, or is there red flags? Now, I would say right now, if this was me and I am getting offered Harvard for next year, I've got a lot of questions. I've got a lot of questions. So the first thing we want to do is let's quickly jump over to the Harvard men's team roster from their website. So here is their roster. There's their coaches. Let me get up to the top here. And what we want to do here, just grab the roster and we want to count seniors. We want to see how many seniors or graduate students, because that'll give us an idea how many kids are exiting the program. So right now we know there's one senior there. And as we slide down the list, first years mean they're the first year on the team. They call them first years instead of freshmen now. I guess that's the politically correct thing to do. So if I scroll through this list, I'm only seeing 2 seniors so far, 3 seniors so far, 3 seniors. Okay. Now the red flags amplify a little bit more, but it's not fair to stop right there and look at this and say, oh, they've got 13 coming in and they're only losing 3 players. What are happening to those other 10 kids? Because there's 7 things that can happen to players. And we're going to go through that list in a second, but we're not done doing our homework on this team yet. What we're going to do now is we're going to jump over to elite prospects. And the reason we want to pull up elite prospects is here is the team on elite prospects. But look at these icons here, Red Wings. You've got the Dallas Stars, the Rangers, the Toronto. You got all the different teams. Those little icons tell you how many players have actually got NHL draft status already. They've been drafted. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and a goalie, 11. Okay, now the picture is a little bit different because we're looking at this and saying, okay, if they're draft age kids and all those kids that are draft age, look at the ages on them. Well, you really can't look at it from here. I'm sorry. But if you look at these kids are all going to be 21, 22 years old, okay, or older. The concern that I would have with this is how many of these kids will be returning next year? How many of these kids are going to be on the team, or they're 1 and done, 2 and done, 3 and done players? And the more elite the player, the less chance they're going to go all 4 years. But this gives me an idea of what to look at. And so what I would probably do if I were a parent is I'd just start clicking on names and seeing how high their draft pick is. That's another thing too. If you're a first or second rounder, there's a real good chance that you're gonna jump earlier. So you just using Kyle here, and I don't know Kyle. He is a Detroit Red Wings 6th round pick. Yeah, it's fairly safe to say that a 6th round pick usually doesn't jump unless he's had just tons of improvement since he's been in college. But he's unsigned with the Red Wings right now. And if you look at how many years he's played at Harvard, he'll be going into his senior year. Who knows? Maybe he does make a jump earlier. Maybe he wants to go to the OHL. But the reason I say this is important is now we can talk about those 7 things that you could potentially be concerned with, and you have to think about when you look at the amount of kids that are committed. First thing with that list that you're looking at, you probably will say, oh my gosh, that's a lot of kids. That's a ton of kids that are getting committed. And if there's that many kids getting committed, what does that mean? 13 kids, holy smokes. That's a big, big number. So the first thing, you find out how many seniors are going. That means graduation. So you can graduate, but there's a few different things that you can do. You can be ineligible. So that's where one of the conversations would be if I got offered right now. Is there any kids that are academically ineligible that won't be playing in the fall? Because that's maybe why you're getting recruited. I would be asking about kids that are quitting. Do you know of any kids that don't plan on returning next year? That's a legitimate question when you're getting recruited. Another question is this is a big one. I believe, is it next year? Yeah, next year in the second semester, it's an Olympic year. Some of these players, and I'm not sure if we're not letting the NHL guys play. So there may be some college kids that are committed to it. Used to be before we got full NHL. Earlier in my career, you always expected to see 30, 40 kids and then some of them would come back as they got cut from the Olympic program when they trimmed down. And so then you'd end up with 20, 25 kids that stuck with the Olympic program. Some officially rostered, some were just practice players, but you'd get that 2025 number. And so that's something to consider is this an Olympic year? The next thing is the team just plan on cutting some kids? And that one you might not get a straight answer on from a coach, but I would absolutely be asking the coach, hey, how many kids do you plan on cutting? I probably wouldn't be that blunt with it. Or is there any kids that you don't plan on bringing back? Is this normal that you do this, or is this a unique situation this year on why you're doing that? That next one, number 5, is how many kids do you think will be leaving for the NHL? Do you have any idea? Once again, the stronger the programs, the North Dakotas, the Minnesotas, the Michigans of the world, the Boston College, BU, Providence, some of these guys with really high draft picks. And right now it's Michigan, BCBU usually gets most of the kids coming out of the National Development Program. So since they're coming out of there, there's always a chance that those kids are, the one and dones or the two and dones, and then they jump up into the NHL. So I'd ask that. And then the last one is, do you have any players that are injured that you don't see? They're getting shoulder surgery, they're getting back surgery, they're getting knee surgery that are on the roster, but they don't plan on playing. That might explain those situations. Might explain every single reason why there's 13 committed players for next year. But it's the onus is on you to get those things answered. Some of it you can get by your son having friends on the team already. Some of that you can get from just having conversation with the coaching staff. But hey, that's a little bit of a red flag that can be dispelled pretty quickly, or it could be something I'd be concerned about. It is not. Do not think that I'm saying this about Harvard. I'm not saying this about Harvard, but there are teams out there that are notorious for committing twice as many kids, even 3 times as many kids annually than they need. So if there's only 4 openings, they bring in 12. If there's 7 openings, they might have 21. And then some programs will just ghost you, just won't even return a call or a text or want to meet with you. Excuse me. Some of these programs will want to meet with you either by a video call. When I say with you, it's the family, the player, the family. It's always the player first, but there might be extras added onto that. So that's extremely important to know. I will never publish that list. That's not something you're going to get straight from me, because clearly the idea of this is not to roll people under the bus. It's to educate you and give you information on how to find these things, to be a little bit of a detective. The more you talk, you want to find out something about a team. What you do is you get recruited by their rival too. You'll get a lot of information on both sides by playing them both off against each other. But I don't recommend that you go on a witch hunt on programs. I just don't think it's a good idea. So that's a little bit of an interesting situation. What I want to do now is go back and let's look at one more school, because I think this one will really open your eyes to this. And we're going to let's pull up College Hockey Inc. again. And right now we're at Harvard. Let's jump down a little bit and let's look at the Maine Black Bears. Okay, the Maine Black Bears start right there. Tell me if you're seeing this and it's working for you, but that's the Maine Black Bears. Now, Maine has 36 kids committed. Of that, I believe there's 24 of them. I just counted them right before we went on the air that start next year. Holy smokes. So that's the first thing we did. Now, remember, the second thing we did is we went and looked at their roster. So we can go over and pull up the Maine roster here, and we can scroll through it, which is real easy. Just scroll through the Maine roster, and we're looking for seniors. There's one. And I thought there was 2. Yeah, there's another one right there. 2. And so there's 2. Whoa. 24 committed players for next year. 2. Now that's still a relatively young coaching staff, meaning The coach is fairly new. I think he might be in his second season there. I didn't do that ahead of time, but I know that there's new blood there at Maine. But that's a red flag. Now, here's the next one. Now that we've got the amount of commits, the roster size there, I believe, is 28. So you're almost replacing every single player. You're replacing everybody sans three if all those commitments are legitimate. Okay. Now you only have two players leaving. So if you minus those two players, you're replacing everybody except for one player. That's a concern to me. I would want to answer all those questions. Is there anybody injured not coming back? Oh, the one thing I forgot to tell you is about the transfer portal too. That's a variable. You don't know how many players, and some coaches have a gauge on how many guys are going to go to the transfer portal and just leave to basically go to another school. But that's not always a number that can be tracked. Now, some coaches, as they're recruiting you, say, we know we have 2 players that are going to transfer out. We know we have 3 players, but that's a number, so you got injuries, cuts, kids quitting. You've got ineligible academically. What are some of the other ones I put? Oh, there's a transfer portal, potentially playing on a national team if it's a NHL year, and there's actually leaving to go to the NHL. So there's a lot of reasons kids can leave, but we're not done here. Let's go over here and look at elite prospects. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. I wanted elite prospects for Maine. Give me a second, and I will. There we go. So here's the main one, and we're just looking right now on this roster for Maine on elite prospects, and we're looking for those icons. So they've only got one drafted player on the team, and now we just want to kind of get a little gauge on him. So he is 18. He's young, and he's a first round, number 30 overall. There's a good chance a first round player is not going to return the next year. So that's good that we looked that up, but that still doesn't add up. There's only one of them. So I would have a lot of questions to ask this coach or whoever from the program's recruiting me. Once again, these are red flags, but some of it's explainable. That number is pretty hard. There's going to have to be a lot of splaining going on if I'm being recruited or I've been committed to, or I'm, just thinking about committing to Maine, only because of the amount of commitments they have on the list. And we looked at that list already. That was a super long list of commitments. So it's something to be concerned about. But this is the kind of homework you have to do. You have to go through these lists. You have to look at the school. And it's not good enough to say, hey, we only got one commit or one school making an offer. There's only one place we can commit to. It's, college X or university X. And, we're good with that. I just don't recommend that. This is an angle that should be explored. If it's a school, let's say you're getting 3 or 4, you're looking at this for all 3 or 4 schools you're getting offers from, because you want to know how big that class is. What if, you're a defenseman, there's only one defensive spot open up for next year, and they've got 7 defensemen committed. Okay. And this is a real life story. This is something one of my children went through. He got really excited that it was the school he wanted. He dreamed about going there, and they had 5 players in excess for his position. And what they did was they decided on one, and it's subjective on which one they were, because they were all really good players. They're all legitimate D1 players, and they decided to, with all decency, they still offered him a scholarship and they still talked to him, but they made no guarantees that he was going to see the ice for all 4 years. And they do that because, okay, if you really want to go to school, they'll still honor a scholarship. But a kid that really wants to play hockey is going to say thanks, but no thanks. So it's probably the most honorable way a school can get out of that situation. But remember, if you've been playing hockey your whole life and your dream is to play college hockey, no matter if it's the right or wrong decision, turning down a scholarship, a full scholarship, it is what it is. Kids want to play if that's at the level they're at, So I hope that makes sense. Give me some comments on that. Give me some questions on that. I'd be really interested to know what you guys are thinking about when we talk about things like this, and when we have conversations about, actually triangulating between several websites to get some data that will help you make good decisions. So, yeah, so this just came in, and it says they only have so much scholarship money. So how many of those kids are committed with $0 offer? So every school has a maximum of 18 scholarships. They don't really do it with a lump of money. However, that those 18 scholarships can be broken down by 50%. They can get 4 kids on a 25% scholarship. I've had this conversation, or I've talked about this before. My nephew, he's 30 now, but when he came out of U16, U18, 6'4", 225, led the national championship 2 teams in a row, 2 years in a row, his team 2 years in a row in scoring. And his college offer was, he paid the first year. The second year, I think he went to 50%. And the third and fourth years, it was a full ride. Now that's by the way, he was the number 1 overall pick in the USHL draft too. Not the futures draft, but the normal draft. He was the number 1 overall pick. So he led the national championship team in scoring. He's 6'4" as a forward. And he was the number 1 overall pick in the USHL, not the USPHL, the USHL. So, excuse me. And he still paid money out of his pocket. So if the number 1 pick in the USHL is paying money out of that, there's a good chance that a lot of you are going to be doing that. Now, most D1 teams carry 27 to 30 players. So there's going to be a lot of kids that are those commitments you saw have nothing to do with if it's a full ride. It's a commitment to be on their team. It's a commitment to go to their school. Okay. So, or go to their school and be on the team, however you want to cart before the horse there. So that money issue is a completely separate conversation, but that also might steer you. Let's say you get on a Division I team, but it's a full pay. They say, hey, we've got a spot for you. We'd love you to commit here. We're offering you a spot. We cannot offer you a scholarship at this point. Well, so then maybe that you have a discussion on what level you're playing at and what you're doing. So I'm glad that came up, and that's a real good question, but it's probably not the answer you want to hear, because if 18 guys have full scholarships on the team, that means that there's 9, 10 guys, 11, 12 guys on the team that either have 0 or there's people sharing fractions of a scholarship. So back when I got an offer when Minnesota, when Herb Brooks went to that's how old I am. When Herb Brooks went to the Olympic program, a guy named Brad Buteau took over Minnesota. Brad Buteau left Minnesota and he went out to San Diego. There was a Division I program, a really good Division I program at USIU, United States International University. It's no longer there. And most of that was because of funding for the rink. They couldn't get funding for the rink they want. Like Arizona State's got a really nice rink now. They offered me a scholarship. I actually went out and practiced and visited, and it wasn't that much of a stretch because I was right in Southern California at the time. But the team had 40 players on that were scholarship players. And what they did was they started you off with, a fraction of a scholarship, and you worked your way into a full scholarship. So by the time you were a senior, you were on a full ride. First year, you could be at 0, you could be at 20%, you could be at 25%, and then you worked your way up from there. I said no to that. I chose another college because of that. But that's something that you should really look at and discuss with the school. So hopefully that helps. So the next question that came in, I think you guys can all see the list of questions on the side there. And I'll try to go back and catch up with some other stuff too. But it says, does College Hockey Inc. follow D3? No. The information you get on College Hockey Inc. is D1 related. It's actually funded. There's a grant from USA Hockey, but that grant is fulfilled with money from the NHL. So this is the secret about all the really cool things about USA Hockey. If it's cool at USA Hockey, it's usually funded by the USHL. I've got a video on it that explains how USA Hockey works. When the ADM was developed, that was for the NHL, because the NHL, when the KHL in Russia, which is their version of the Russian version of the NHL, when that came to be, the NHL was spending a lot of money in development in Russia and the satellite Eastern European countries. And so when the KHL came around, basically the NHL said, F that, we're not going to spend that money there. And I think it's around 9 million annually that they were using for development. They said, USA Hockey, draft us up a plan. This is literally how it happened. They said, draft us up a plan. USA Hockey went to one of their workers who was in mid-management. He's in senior management now, and said, hey, give us that thesis you wrote for your master's degree. They went up on the shelf, they dusted off, and it was the ADM model. And that's how the ADM it came to be. I explain all that in the video. Grab it, watch it. You might enjoy it. I actually use some animation in it, and all the animation was produced and directed by me. So if you think it's bad, it probably is. You're probably right. It was a crude attempt to add some flavor to it, but had fun doing it, and I think there's a lot of good information. Now, once that money came over, it got allocated. So things that are covered in that, the USA Hockey gives, and I haven't looked at the numbers, the USA Hockey numbers. They're all available off their site. You can look up their annual revenue numbers, but $1 million was going to the USHL to help market the USHL. There was money going to the North American League. That's the only two leagues that they actually fund. So the grants that come out of USA Hockey are funded by the NHL. College Hockey Inc., the Women's National Program, the National Training and Development Program gets a huge chunk of money directly from the NHL. And that's how all this stuff was added. It wasn't because it's kind of like wartime. A lot of our technology and a lot of our creative, innovative product, when our country has to crunch down and go to war, you see all these innovative things come out of during the wartime. It's like this here. There was a crunch period. The NHL said, we need this right now. And all of a sudden, a lot of innovative things started coming out of USA Hockey. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Another question that popped up here is there any insight on the NCAA CHL possible agreement in the near future? I don't follow that as close as I should, because I usually don't get involved too much with the CHL. You would think it's going to happen sooner or later because of the name, image, and likeness deal with Division I athletes in NCAA now. In other words, I can have my own commercials. I can sell my own logos. I can sell my signature. I can make money off of my name, image, and likeness. So, you would think that evens the scale. Now our athletes are, for all intents and purposes, they're now pro athletes. What would be the holdup? I'm going to have somebody on in the next few weeks that knows a lot more about that than I do. There is no rumors out there right now. The rumors are coming from sources that would just not in the know. But there's nobody in the know that's confirming or denying anything. So I'm not seeing anything coming from reputable sources, nor has anybody that's reputable called me up and said, hey, you might want to talk about this. So right now I don't see anything that could change in a dime, though. So hopefully that helps a little bit. So let's say hi to some people. Massapequa, New York. Charles, thanks for being on tonight. We got a lot of Facebook users saying hi. Hi to you too. Troy, good to see you. That was a good question you asked there. I know I'm saying a lot, and that's usually what Mike's good for, but Mike's not here yet. So there we go. Hey, Jeff, wild day in the NA3 trade deadline. We already kind of discussed that a little bit. So I think we're up to speed on it. Comments coming in. If you got questions before we get on to another topic, throw them up. I'll try to get as many questions or comments on that I can. And what's so nice now is they pop right up there and they populate on the side so we can all see them at the same time. There's more than just shows up here. What's interesting, though, is I haven't figured out how to scroll through this list yet. And if I can figure out how to scroll through that list, I'll start doing it. I have another list of all the comments to the right of that you don't see. But okay, was that helpful? Did that explain anything that you didn't know? Does it add to your toolbox when you're actually doing things? Let me know before you get off if you could, and that would help a lot. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, and if you haven't gone to our YouTube site yet, please go to our YouTube site, like and subscribe to that. These things are all on there. There's a lot of our little helpful snippet things that pop up there. It's a wonderful place to go besides our Facebook discussion group or our Facebook group. I'd love to see you go there. Join us there too. We do put content up on there, especially some of our archive stuff that doesn't show up on Facebook anywhere. So please, jump on there, like and subscribe. Throw us some comments up here. We got some things popping up here. Does College Hockey Inc. follow D3? We already answered that. Did you go to Top Prospects Showcase? No, the reason I didn't go is there's very little I can do there except for network. And since I have personal relationships with a lot of those guys, it would have been even less productive. I like to go when I don't know a lot of people, then I can meet some new people. But, the Lone Star head was there. That means that I'm going to spend a lot of time, doing things that I don't need to be doing and not being as productive as I can be. I'm old, man. I get 3 beers in me, and I sleep until 9 o'clock in the morning. That's not what I want to be doing if I'm doing that stuff. So, no, I didn't go this year. To be honest with you, it just wouldn't have been productive. There wasn't much I could accomplish there. Those players are all either just committed because when they were picked, they had all the teams balanced out. Maybe they just got a commitment in the last week or two, or they're uncommitted players to the college level. My job is to bring in talent or to help our scouts bring in talent, from either other junior programs or the high school age U16, U18, which normally is all U18, other colleges. That's what we're really looking at, other leagues and U18. So please let me know. Did that help? Weston, Wisconsin, good to see you. Come on. Just got a like and subscribe from Matt. Thank you, Matt. Come on, folks. Just keep cranking over there and make that YouTube page even stronger. By the way, I don't know if many of you paid attention, but it was only a few weeks ago where we cracked the 10,000 members to our discussion group. We blew through 11,000 like it was nothing. The fastest 1,000 new subscribers we've had since we started this 4 years ago. So thank you all. I hope some of the new people are on. If you're new, throw it up and say, hey, I'm new to this and I'm just learning. Everybody on this list was new at some point, including myself. So you're going to hopefully learn some new things and help. And I really just need feedback on knowing if any of this is helping. Any thoughts on goalies? Would these strategies be applied any differently? That's a good question. All the strategies work with goalies. Yeah, I think everything works. I don't think you'd change anything for a goalie. I will add comments online if I think about that and sleep on it and think of anything that would change for a goalie, but I don't think so. I think that that plays well, for a goalie too. It's just, once again, it's most people out there are honorable and do things right, but it's kind of like any sports level you have. The majority of people that are advisors, I believe, do a good job and they're honest, but there's a percentage that aren't. And in junior hockey and at college hockey, even at youth hockey, it's the same way. The majority of people do it right and try to, follow the rules. So these red flags should be just that, red flags. It should not turn you off until you find a reason to, be turned off by it. So hopefully that makes sense. But no, I don't think it would change for anybody. Hey, Vince, good to see you. Now there's a person that was at Top Prospects. Maybe throw up a comment and tell everybody what you thought of Top Prospects. Your son's been on a great ride. Congratulations. And, hopefully everything works out there. And, just full disclosure, his son plays for the Lone Star Brahmas. So he's one of the prized possessions of the rookie class. And he got his commitment his first year at Lone Star. So good for you. Not trying to plug Lone Star, but we're plugging Lone Star. Okay. Troy says, I am not new, but constantly learning. Please keep up please keep broadcasting. We're trying. It's mainly true that D3 schools only look really at kids who, is it really true that they only look at kids who played all 3 years of junior? That's a great question. So Charles wants to know, at the D3 level, the answer is yes, they want players that play all 3 years. And you think, well, why? My kid's really good. He's as good, he's almost as good as a D1 player, or, he's as good as a D1 player because let's be honest, there's an overlap. There's 10% of the kids that are up in the D1 levels are really D3 talent, and 10% of the kids that are at the D3 level are D1 talent. There's that bandwidth there of overlap. That's kind of the pick 'em. It's like the bet where you get where you pick them. You choose, there's no spread either way on those kids. They can go either way. So, yeah, how can I show you that? Is there a way I can show you that? Let's jump over to full screen, and then we're going to jump over here to this here. And what we'll do is, I'm still figuring out the best way to do this. What I want to do is I want to go to, I did this last week, but I'll walk through this process for you so that some of the people that didn't watch last week, if you're on premium, and I strongly think that everybody should be on the premium level of elite prospects if you're in this process and you're trying to move up to the college level, through juniors to the college level. There's so many things that help you along the way. One of them is, and this isn't what we're talking about, but I'll show you first, is the agent portal. You can pull up, and it says agent because this is, it's built for the pro side, but it still does the college side. And if I hit on that, I pull up the agent portal, and it allows me to look at all the different firms that are either advisors, agents and advisors, or just agents. So there's 3 categories there. You're either going to be just an agent, you can be just an advisor firm, or you can be a firm that does both. And a firm like the Orr Group, they have agents and they have advisors. There's, probably at least 50% of these do both. The Bartlett Group, they handle mostly NHL players. So once I get to this list, and I know I've got other things I want to talk about, but this is a good question. Once I'm looking at this list here, let me pull up the Bartlett Group. This is they work out of the Pittsford, New York area. We just moved out of the Pittsford, New York area. But you get all the information on it. They give you a website to go to. They tell you who the key members are. And it's the interesting thing about it is they also give you their most viewed clients. And what do you notice on this? Everybody on this list, sans 1-2 players, are all NHL guys. So this firm deals with high-end people. And if you look at their current roster NHL clients, you can see who they actually represent. And it's got current players, and I think it might show you some. They're all still playing, except for Josh Archibald is not. He's done, but most of them you can see what years they're under representation. So 23-24 means they're currently registered. But like Kevin Deneen, he retired a few years ago, was with them, and you see some names on there. Steven, Brian Jonta, there's some big names on this list as you go down and look at all their NHL guys. Look at that. Kel McCarr. You can see some great names on there. Now, when you look at that list, then you go to the ones that have been drafted. Now, these are guys that you can see where their current team is. And over here, it tells you AHL, NHL down this list on the side here. It gives you an idea who they are currently representing that are under a draft. They're NHL drafted. They might be beyond the draft where it doesn't matter anymore, but you don't see too many of their guys. There's one BCHL guy they represent. They usually get the pros, and they're not too worried about non-pro players. But once you get through that list, then it gives you an alphabetical breakdown of all the guys they're representing across the board. So USHL, these AHL guys, most of the time they've got AHL guys that are doing a short stint before they go to the next level. They got OHL guys, and they've got a few guys that are, I think I saw on their list the other day they had like one null guy, but maybe some USHL guys. But that's one of the top firms. Clearly, you can tell by their names and how many NHL players they represent. So, getting back to the original question about D3, if I pull up any, let's see, how am I going to do this? Okay, I'll go up here and do this. I'll type in NCAA. I can go down here and grab NCAA D3, and it'll take a second because when I'm broadcasting, it never happens fast. So while we're waiting for that, there we go. Now what I can do here is I can go down. There's a list of all of the team rosters for D3. Now, what I can do is the easy way to do it to scrub it is I can pull up the green box underneath the player stats. This gives me all the players that are forwards and goalies. They're two separate lists. There's 2,364 players, and then I can go up off that list at the top of the page now, and I can use the where's that at? Is it on the bottom of it? I'm going to look for the scrub on this. Oh, here it is. So now I can go up here and I can say, I want to look at all ages. I want to see anybody that's currently could play U19. That's a good way to break it down. Show me all the kids that are at the U19 level. So this is 18 or just turned 19. And you see there's all the kids that would qualify for U19 in the whole league. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all East Coast kids, all higher end schools. That gives you an idea right there. There's only 5 kids that would fall in that. I can do that again for U20. And this would be a kid that left after 2 years of juniors. And you can see the list is a little bit longer. There is, out of that number, there's 34 kids. Then you start looking at this list and saying, okay, how many are really playing? Now there's 33. You take the 1 or 2 game kids out there, and there's 32, 31, 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25. You can do the work on it yourself. But of kids that are really playing, there's just a handful. And surprisingly, this is more than a normal year. But these 1, 2s, and 3s, that tells you that they probably went too soon because they're really not playing or doing anything. And that's probably the easy way to do it. And if I want to go younger, U18, which would be a kid that's coming right out of high school. Let's see how many kids are coming right out of high school. That U19 might be, a kid that played 1 year of prep or, played his PG year in prep. But there is no kids that are 18. And once again, that 19 age, you can see the list there is only 5. So they definitely went. Now I go to U21 or U22. If I go to U21, the number is going to be a little higher. You can see that there's now the kids that are 21 years old. There's 160 kids. That's the number below the whole list. You can see 160 players found. That's just the first 100. I can go to the next page and see the next 60. And I can do that for every age to kind of get a breakdown of how their rosters look. If I go to U22, you're going to see a substantial number. But now you're getting into kids that are freshmen. U23 would be sophomores and juniors. And now if I look at that list and go down, there's 1,399 kids at that age group. So hopefully that helps a little bit, but you're just not going to see at that age. Now, if I did it for D1, because there are kids that D1's different. D1, there is an elite level of D1 kids that do go to college at a much earlier age. That's because you've got kids coming right out of the National Development Program. You've got superstars coming out of the USHL, and they're coming into college at 18, 19 years old. Much more, they allow that there much more than D3. But here's the logic. If I've got a D3 program and I've got a really good skilled kid that's 18 years old, and I've got a really good skilled kid that played in the NAL or played, maybe played in the CCHL, maybe played in the AJHL, and they're really skilled kids, but they're already 21, or maybe they're turning 22 this year. Okay, 21 would be the age. 21 or 18. What do I get with that 21-year-old that I don't get with the 18-year-old? A little bit more maturity on average, across the board, bigger, stronger, a little bit more sense of what it takes to be a successful player, and a level up from U18 or a level up from prep and a level up from high school, Minnesota high school for the most part. Yes, could they participate and be functional? Of course they could. But if I get a kid that's already, let's face it, he's already been around alcohol for a few years if you're playing juniors, that's one thing that I probably will have less problems with because I'm not throwing a kid into a candy store when he gets to college. You all know what a freshman year is like if you're an 18-year-old and you've been living at home and your first step out as a college freshman. Boy, oh boy, that's you're getting thrown into a 70 mile an hour fast lane on the highway before you've even driven a car yet. So there's a reason and logic behind that. So hopefully that helps a little bit. If it doesn't, paraphrase a little bit on the question or adjust the question a little bit. I'll try to get there. Hey, Vince says lots of scouts, great hockey. Yeah, when you go to these events with top prospects, what you get is the whole section. Football teams, like Penn State will have their white out. University of Michigan has their maize out where the whole crowd is in white, or the whole crowd is in maize at the Michigan games. Penn State does it all in white. Other schools do the same thing. Well, at these events, if you see a black jacket like this, black pants and black shoes, that's a college scout or a junior scout, and they all sit together in the same area. They all get up in mass to go into the coaching room to grab a coffee, grab a sandwich, and they all come out for the most part. And that event actually does get NHL people in the stands too. So you'll actually get, and surprisingly, most of the time you get the NHL for the goalies. Goalies get a lot of exposure if you get the top prospects. They do scour really, really hard on goalies. And sometimes you go to these events and there's so many NHL people that the dynamics change completely when there's a goalie that's on the radar for the NHL, because all the other coaches want to come and watch. Parents, start seeing a buzz in there, and they all come in to see what's going on. The word gets out that goalie X is being looked at, and then it just becomes a mob. You see that in Blaine for the North American Hockey League showcase at the beginning of the year. It's in Blaine too. So, okay, Charles says my son is finishing his second year and is getting interest from ACHA M1, which is it's D1 too, and he's trying to decide what to do. Hey, go back a couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks in our broadcast. Look for our broadcast on the ACHA. We go through an extensive stuff. It's on YouTube. It is on Facebook too, but probably easier to get off of the content list on YouTube. Just go to our page, type in ACHA. We have one of the best. He's a Hall of Famer at the ACHL level. His school is Michael Hernbrot. He was on the United States Marine Corps All-Marine team when I was on the team. He now runs a D1, D2, and D3 team out of the same school. He gives you all kinds of content of how to work that process and go through that process. Really helpful broadcast. I would highly recommend you jump on and watch that. Let's see what else is coming on. I am not, okay, I already did that one. Can the percentage be negotiated? We're probably getting back to the college offer on scholarships as far as the percentage. I would say it's case by case. Clearly the more in demand you are, and if you've got 4 or 5 offers on the table, of course it could be negotiated. But if you've got 4 or 5 offers on the table, there's a good chance that you've already got one that's a full or near full offer on the table. Yeah, I mean, once again, it depends on how much demand. If they're saying, hey, look, you're going to come on and you're going to take one of our last roster spots, I don't think you've got a negotiable position there and much leverage. But you definitely got some leverage if you've got a handful of schools that are looking at you, are already offered you, and they get it. If you're getting offers from the Atlantic, you're probably not getting offers from the Big Ten. But if you're getting offers from 2 or 3 different Big Ten schools, yeah, could there be a little bitty more there? I'd just be careful with that. You just got to be careful. It's much easier to get on the roster any way you can, and then prove yourself, and take a year to prove yourself, and reap the rewards of having good production. At least that's the way I look at it. I'd be real careful with that. So that's it. I think I enjoyed tonight. I enjoyed what we covered and what we talked about. I hope you did too. We've gone just about an hour. I'll chat for a little bit just in case anybody wants to throw up another question or a comment, and I'll jump on. But I think I hit everybody's comments. I think I hit all the questions. We got our two big major discussion. No, I can't stop yet. I can't stop yet. We didn't finish our discussion that I promised tonight, which is a discussion of the NA3HL and the USPHL. Kind of break that down, give you assessment of how good the hockey is, and talk about what the advantages of both are. Here's the bottom line: it's extremely difficult. There's leagues of opportunity for the process to move up and out, and there's leagues that are closed leagues. The first thing I'll say about the USPHL, I used to own the franchise when Premier was the NCDC. I owned a Premier franchise and what would be considered an elite franchise now, or excuse me, what would be considered NCD and Premier is what we owned at the time, what I owned at the time. That was right when they took we used to be the EJHL. The EJHL was much more competitive than what the current model of NCDC is. And, there was NHL draft picks in the EJHL. There was just a ton of percentage of the roster that got D1 commits was much more in line with what the NOL was at the time or what the NOL is now versus, the handful. I know I'm going to get off topic here a little bit, but this came up this week in a discussion about where the NCDC fits. And Michael, I think I answered that just a second ago about the percentage to negotiate. You could go back and watch the replay on that. I just probably did 4 or 5 minutes on that. Or maybe you put that question in earlier and it just popped up now. But it shows up as two different questions on there. Let's go to that college commitment list again. And I'm going to show you just to give you an idea of something here. Now, we can go into, remember, we can go into that commitment list, which I'm on right now, and I can go to current team. Now, what current team does is it breaks down the first part of the list is our national development kids, and you see there's just a ton. There's 40 or 50 kids that that are already committed. And if you notice the schools they're committing to, they're all the elites. North Dakota, Minnesota, Boston, Minnesota, Denver, Michigan State, Michigan, Boston. You're going to see Boston, BU, BC, and University of Michigan are usually dominate this list. And look down here, University of Michigan, 2 times there. Michigan State is on there, which is not normal. That's a new one. But remember, they got a new coach, and he's got ties to the development program. So that's actually giving kids more opportunities there. But we're not looking at that. What I want to do is this is set up, and it starts with the top league. So all the schools, Cedar Rapids, Chicago Steel, Des Moines, these are all the USHL kids broken down by teams. So you can see Dubuque, Des Moines, Fargo Force. And as we go down the list further, the next league after, now we're at Lincoln, we're at Madison, Muskegon, all in alphabetical order here. These are all the commitments for the USHL. And then we get through that, and we start with, where is it here? Aberdeen. Now we're in the NOL. You see the lists are a little bit shorter. The NOL's just picking up their steam. It's always a late commitment league versus the other leagues. But now you start seeing all of the NOL teams. So once we get through the NOL, which comes up here pretty soon, now we get into the BCHL. And it's already been updated to show the BCHL with the new AJ, the 5 new teams that came over from the AJHL, which still fascinates me. In the middle of the season, they just picked up 5 teams and changed leagues in midstream. So these are all of the kids. Look at Brooks. Brooks is just as good or better than any other BCHL team as far as their amount of commitments. Now we go through the BCHL. Remember, I put this on current teams. That's the click I did to sort this list. And I'm doing this so you can kind of get a sense of how it works on current teams. It goes in the order of the league. So now we're in the BCHL. Once we get through that, now we're getting down into, with Bonnyville, alphabetical order. Now we're with the AJ. And the AJ list is a little bit shorter than the NOL list and per team. But now it doesn't last long, because now we get into Uh, when you're looking at Flin Flon, Battleford, now you're starting to look at the Saskatchewan. You'll get you're getting the rest of the Winkler, Sioux, Brantford. All these teams here are your CGHL kids. They're kids that are coming from the SJHL, the MJHL, the OJHL, and the CCHL for the most part. So you get all those kids. Now, once we get through that list, and we're still on that list there, Brockville, Kempville, Renfrew. There's not many, but look here now. When we get to here, I'm going to put it up at the very top. New commits, kids that have commitments already in the league. These are the commitments for pretty much the last year here. This is the NCDC: Boston Junior Bruins, the Islanders, PAL, Rockets, South Shore, and you're done. So you had that's an average to below average. Their commitments are average to below average for one null team for their whole league. So when people talk about, that there's a parity between the NCDC or there isn't much difference, just go to this list. It will do the homework for you. You'll get an idea. And the rest of these are a combination of U18 and prep schools. And that's when you start getting into, you see Shattuck, you see Victory Honda, you see the Buffalo Junior Sabres 16U. These are kids that have committed from the lower levels, age levels, not the lower levels of talent. So hopefully that helped a little bit to explain how that works. But it also tells you, that closed league mentality. Your opportunities in the USPHL Premier don't really get you into the NUL or the USHL. How do I know that? Well, once again, the stats are all there for you if you know where to look. If I go into the NUL through, Elite Prospects, and I'll pull this up for you in a second here. Let me get it up for you. If I go into the NUL and pull that screen up for you, and I'm looking at all their teams. All I did was type in NUL. This is what shows up on Elite Prospects. Now, if I go down to that green button underneath the player stats and I click on that button, I can look at the whole NUL and get a sense. Once again, I'm lagging a little bit. I apologize. Okay, I can just go up here and I can type in, where is my, for some reason, I'm not getting my screen for that. Maybe I'm not logged in under my Premier account. Usually right in here, I can pull up the list of leagues, and I'm not getting that right now. And what I would do here, just to walk through when I pull up, it's usually a screen like this, but it's about 3 times as big, meaning I have choices to sort by. What I would do is under, sort by prior teams, I would type in the Premier or the USPHL. And when I type in the USPHL, it would show me all the kids that skated at the USPHL level. And it would break it down for me so I can actually see that. For whatever reason, I'm not getting that right now. I don't know why. Oh, let me hit this. There we go. Sorry. I found it. USPHL. Whoops, learn how to spell, Jeff. USPHL. Geez, what is wrong with me here? USPHL Premier, right there. Now, I'm going to sort by just players that are in the NUL that have a USPHL Premier background. Now, there's going to be some, but when we dig into it a little bit deeper, let's filter it out. The amount of kids, none. So, you can clearly see that that's not a path. Now, comparing that to the kids from the USPHL, if I go back up and I sort and look for NA3HL players, NA3, so there's NA3, and I'll hit the filter there. Now I can see how many kids have actually moved up from that league, and that number is a little bit different. Now, kids that have NUL experience, there are 92 kids that came out of the league. Now, some of them didn't stick. They came up for a game or two, but they still had an opportunity. And then you've got kids that have, put in, I can sort that by the amount of games played. You see that there's kids that are playing a regular shift. Maybe they're injured a little bit. Maybe they came in late a little bit. But you can see that there's, to get up and out the NA3, you can definitely go to the NCDC out of the NA3 if you're good enough. You can definitely go up to Canada and play in one of the CJHL teams. But there's 90 some odd kids that this year they were given an opportunity to come from the NAL and move up and play in the NHL. So one is an option, one isn't. I can break that down for any junior league to give you an idea. You can do this. That's the reason I'm showing you this is you can go on and filter all these things with a premier elite prospects, tab. So you got the filter ability, but it's fun to play with. You start going down rabbit holes and looking at all kinds of things. You can sort by, you can add to that. You can add and say, I want to know kids that scored goals at that level. I want to know, you can just do a ton of different information to sort by. So have fun with it. And hopefully that helps a little bit. The bottom line is you have to really do your homework on this. And the homework is it a team? Do the reverse engineering like I've shown you before. Pull up teams at the next level above the premier, just like we just did. See how many kids come out of that league. Look at the SJHL. Look at the AJHL. Look at the CC. Look at all the different Canadian programs, because sometimes not only financially is it a better deal to go and play in the Canadian leagues. Some of these leagues, it's what we pay. I think the number is somewhere between $7,000 and $12,000 a year to play Tier 3 junior hockey. We didn't talk about the EHL. The EHL is a little bit more closed too, meaning when you go through that EHL process, most of the kids stick in the EHL. They don't have that many jumping out, and that league is really designed to be a great league for D3 alone. The USPHL Premier, there are definitely kids that jump up to play in the NCDC. There are kids that jump to the EHL. You just don't see them jumping over to the NAL, or the USHL. And there are some opportunities in some of the leagues up north. You can do the screening on that to see if they fit up there. The NA3HL, it's built in by design to have tenders and drafts, and players get opportunities by league design. By charter, you have to pull those kids up and give them opportunities. You have to draft them. You have to tender them. So there's a competition to get the best players out of the NA3HL onto your roster. And some self-develop those players. For example, the team I'm involved with, we've got several kids that have had experience in there. Last year and the year before, our captain had moved all the way up through. One of our top 5 scorers had moved all the way up through. So it's functional. It's not perfect. It doesn't mean that if you're on an NA3 team, you're going to be playing in the NAHL. It just means there's definitely there's guaranteed opportunities on every team. Every team is going to have, tenders and draft picks come off the roster. So if that makes sense at all, hopefully that helps a little bit. And I don't see any other questions coming in or comments coming in. So I'm assuming that we got all the information out. And thank you so much. If you could, anytime you can put on our Facebook page, there's a place for comments, not on the discussion group, but our page. They're both named the same thing. One's Junior Hockey Discussion, one's Junior Hockey Facebook page. Anytime you can go on the page and put a comment on about, what value's been added by going through these videos or from our discussion group, put a comment on. That would sure be helpful. And, like and subscribe to our YouTube page. Sure would appreciate that. Folks, that's all I got for tonight. I thought Mike was going to jump on, but, he was at the rink and most likely got off the ice and had to actually spend some time with parents. He's extremely meticulous about that. So that's where he's at. I know he's at the rink right now. So I was hoping we get him on. We'll get him on next week. And if you got any, even though we're going off the air, if you got a comment, if you got a question, you can throw it up. I'll try to get to them as many as I can. We get 10 times more traction on these through replays than we do live. So the audience picks up a lot on that side. So have a great night, folks. I appreciate every one of you coming on, and I hope I gave you some value and some things to think about or to incorporate into your process as you're trying to move your player up to the next level. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.